Welcome to the Lux AVL YouTube channel. Before we jump in, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on all the notifications so you never miss out on our latest content.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Wesley with Lux AVL. We're here at Redemption Hill Church. We just wrapped up a many-month-long process of installing a bunch of AV gear here for these guys. We've been working with them for a super long time, but we wanted to dive into some of the things that we've done here. It's Friday, we're dialing in some lights, dialing in some mixing through virtual sound check, but we wanted to kind of talk about some of the key pieces of gear that we have here. Kind of the first thing that I actually want to talk about is the booth itself. It is acoustically transparent, so that we don't get the low end buildup inside. And then we have sit stand desks, so everything can go up and down. Depending on who kind of what church you come from, that may be old news at this point, but for these guys, it was revolutionary. They'd never heard of it before, and it makes mixing here that much better. This client has been a longtime client of ours, but that also means we have a lot of OFE gear that we're able to bring with. So this D-Live is actually one of them. We have a D-Live S5000, and then we have a DM48 back at the stage. Over here on this side, we have a MA3 on PC with a command wing for control. MA has been great because we're able to automate a lot of the control of it through ProPresenter. ProPresenter we have here, but that's actually a KVM back to the computer in our video room back here. So that's just the monitor, keyboard, and mouse. The other thing here at front of house is we have one of our equipment racks, which just has connector panels for us, and then some network switches. Everything in this whole booth hits a connector panel, and for that matter, almost everything in this whole building hits a connector panel. So we can patch anything from anywhere. We have a lot of shielded Ethernet cable that allows us to do Ethernet for net internet. Dante, we can make it a DX, like Allen & Heath stage box, or we could do analog XLR over a little Cat SAS system, or even COM over stuff like that. So very, very flexible and expandable if they end up changing out desks, 10 years from now. But that kind of thing really allows this system to last a really long time into the future. Moving past kind of front of house a little bit, moving towards stage, we have the sound system up in the air. The PA system was ordered many years ago, and then through the design process, the designer decided they liked the white proscenium with the black speakers in front of it. We weren't planning on that, but here we are, and they really like it. It is a DMB PA. We have 24S mains, so main left, main right is 24S, and then we have outfill left, outfill right, also 24S. And then we have 4 21S subwoofers. So each one of those subwoofers is a single 21-inch driver, and they're hung pointing at each other, stacked, in what I call an opposed array. And that allows for really, really, really wide coverage of this room. As you see, we have seats upstage of the downstage edge. If we do a more traditional subwoofer array, those can get really narrow, which in some rooms is great, but for this one it was really wide, so we went with that. And the proscenium kind of helps keep the stage volume down as far as subwoofers go. We're within 2 dB from 100 hertz to like 12K in this room though, so great coverage. And we're actually running a right, left, right, left. In the middle we get normal stereo image, and then opposite on the outside, which gives you, if you pan, panning overheads, panning guitars, gives really good stereo image around the room. Lighting wise, we also did the house lights in here. These are by a company called Environmental Lights. They dim great, they're variable white, they're 10,000 lumens, and they have remote drivers. So we're able to install them way cheaper than a conventional, typical house light, or even that from, a PowerCon in and wireless DMX from another brand. These are way more economical, but look great. This client didn't want the RGB. If you're gonna go full RGB, there are better options, but for just variable white, these lights work great. I guess the other thing we should talk about before we hit stage is the acoustics of the space. Like I said, because we've been working with this client for so long, we actually got to play a role in how the building was shaped. Not everything, but if you look back here at our back walls, the back walls themselves are actually tilted slightly. So instead of slapping back into the stage, we kind of slap that back down into people. Everything up top has 3-inch thick acoustic treatment on it. Then we have some diffusion panels as well, but the design of the acoustics, we're actually able to simulate in a software, hit a very specific curve. You've probably heard of tuning curve for a sound system, but we also believe in an acoustics curve. How much reverb per frequency. A lot of places, they just start talking about percentages, treat the whole room or treat 70% of the room. But a lot of times you end up with some frequencies treated too much and too dead, and other frequencies still rolling around too much. If you look up, the whole ceiling, which is very, very tall, is metal deck. Ideally, we would have done some treatment up there to keep some of the low end from rolling around up there. Overall, we're really happy with how the acoustics turns out. The client is super happy. It still sounds like you're in a big room with 600 people, but it doesn't sound too live. The speech intelligibility is great, sounds very musical. So we're really intentional about that as far as acoustics go. Jumping back to lighting a little bit, we have our front light up here. We have 2 lighting pipes kind of at 45s to the stage. Each one of those lighting pipes has 4 ETC Color Source Juniors. They're incredible bang for the buck fixture. They're zoomable, their color accuracy is phenomenal for their price. And then we have an ADJ Focus Wash 400 kind of as a moving light. Zoomable wash light, great price, pretty good color, but if they ever do anything on the floor or need to highlight a choir further up stage, these lights kind of allow them to move around a little bit. So up on stage, we have, on the PA system-wise, we have front fills. These are recessed in the stage. They're called a 44S from D&B. They're great. They have a back box we're able to give the constructor. They're able to put in with the studs. We put the speaker in there and can tilt it, so that kind of fills the front area. We have 4 of them around the stage. And then in the stage, which was poured concrete, we have floor pockets. These floor pockets allow us to have power, and then some XLR connections. We have 3 inputs and 1 output in each pocket. And then we have some Ethernet and SDI as well that allow them to patch anything we want over here. So right now we got a Helix rig hooked up to this pocket. That pocket we have a bass guitar in, and that all hits a patch bay backstage that we'll go look at in just a second. So up on stage here, we just kind of came around this corner. We have ADJ Jolt 300s. These are kind of blinder lights. They're pixelable. They're a much cheaper version than like a Color Strike M or a JMCD1K. We have all these lights limited to something like 20%. And even then we have them running at like 12% of 20%, plenty bright. And then on this column and our upstage wall over here, we have an Absen LED wall. This is their NX series. It's the NX 3.7. It looks amazing. The price is incredible on this. We haven't done any color calibration on this yet. We just kind of dialed it in, just loaded a preset, turned down the brightness a little bit, and they look great. They attach right to wall or they can be flown, but the out-of-box colors are phenomenal. And because they don't have all that fancy tour hardware on them, their price is a lot better. Now you can still fly it. We can still take this down and fly it if we wanted to, but super, super economical. We have some acoustic treatment on here too. This is 2-inch thick fiberglass wool, and that surrounds the LED wall on the side walls and on the main wall, kind of helping dampen some of our stage noise. We have 4 of those floor pockets we talked about earlier along the stage, and then nothing in the middle of the stage here. But if you look, for the most part, aside for some mics we have moving around, we don't have cables strewn everywhere. We hit a floor pocket and they're able to patch there. LED wall, same thing we just talked about. More Jolt 300s. And then these are the Jolt Bar 2 that we have on the bottom and top of our LED wall here. And they're, again, full pixel mappable, incredibly bright. They look really, really good. We've been really happy with even the hardware of them. Up top, we have some more ADJ lights. We have ADJ 5Zs. Those are actually like a B stock that we had in our rental inventory, but they were like, hey, can we just have those and have them at the cheaper price? So we're like, sure. So we have those. And then we have some OFE Blizzard Stiletto Glow 19s, I think. Those are these wash lights that kind of look like a Mac Aura. But in this room, they look really good. They work really great. So one more thing before we head backstage and look at the rest of our panels and racks is we have our D&B 24S mains, wire rope to structure coming through the proscenium, but they're really close to the proscenium. Usually you'd be like, oh, that's awesome. But when we take a speaker and put it really close to a wall, sometimes we can have some problems. Behind each speaker, we have an acoustic panel that's from a company called Prime Acoustic. So it's 2-inch, and then you can paint it with either spraying or rolling. And depending on how you paint it, it can actually change its frequency absorption properties. So we painted them in a particular way to absorb more of the low frequencies that come off of these speakers here. Typically, like I said, you put a speaker next to a wall, it can get really weird. Really strange frequency response on the low mids. We don't have that at all here. And they blend in, most people don't even know they're there, but it was something really specific that we decided to do because the speakers ended up so close. It was just kind of a nice little touch that most people didn't think about, the client didn't ask for, but we thought it was important to making sure the audio experience is as good as possible. We have these wall plates over here. We got 10 in, 2 out on each wall plate. We have a DMX, an Ethernet, actually 2 Ethernets, and then an SDI. Something that's kind of unique about these wall plates though is we actually have them custom built with the labeling, and then the connectors on the back. A lot of times people are used to XLR being soldered in, right? Mic line, some 22.2 soldered in. But we have custom PCBs on the back that take the XLR connectors and convert them to a shielded RJ45 connector. We have a company that builds all of our PCBs for install. So inside this wall here, transporting all that audio are 3 shielded Cat5 cables. That allows us to just kind of size down on our conduits a little bit. And terminating is really fast. You know, most people can terminate a shielded Ethernet cable really fast, and then that hits those custom PCBs. And we're able to do that. It saves on our labor. It's really, really robust. It's super reliable. You know, we're not having to fix solders all the time at a really good price. You know, we're able to do these panels way cheaper than what you'd do if you purchase them from someone else already preloaded. Over here, kind of moving away from wall panels, we have our stage rack. We got some power distribution, logo panel with blanks for connectors if we need to add them in the future. And then we have these patch panels. These we get from a company, and we like them because you can load them with these templates. And it allows us to put printed labels above each connector. They come empty, and then we load them with the type of connector we want. So we have a lot of shielded Ethernet cables. Each one of these has a label. All these ones on the left are coming from floor pockets or from our panels. So we can drop in any type of a Dante laptop, a lighting node, a DX stage box, and that hits this patch bay. So right now their lighting or their Trax laptop is plugged into E2 out there, and then that plugs into our first network switch here and allows them to run Dante into their soundboard. And then we have some other connectors over here. These patch to elsewhere in the building. Then we have another patch bay right below that, right below our main Ethernet switch. And that has all of the in-rack connections. So a lot of times you see in-rack Ethernet just kind of pass through a fuzzy. That can get really messy, hard to troubleshoot. All of the in-rack, you know, our Dantes off the back of the ULXD, our video wall processor, all hit a keystone here. And then we have some building wireless access points as well that hit that. Then we have our Dante secondary switch, a fuzzy for all of our DMX to pass through. Dropping down, we have some more OFE gear. These are 8 PSM 300s and an antenna combiner. That was all OFE. We have some OFE ULXD units, 4 channels ULXD. Those go over Dante. Video wall processor, and then we hit our patch system. So we talked about our panels on that side being PCB, with XLR soldered on one side and a shielded Ethernet on the other side. Then on this side, we just have those shielded Ethernet come back in and then hit a main board. It has just a bunch of Ethernet on the back and then terminal block that allow us to wire in these pre-made Ethernet cables. So again, we're not soldering stuff over here, allows us to prep a lot of stuff ahead of time, terminate cables really, really quickly. We have these banker rings on here identifying each cable, so this one's B3. The idea being that each one of our panels has a letter associated with it and then a number of connectors on it. So panel A has A 1 through 12 versus panel G, which is actually a floor pocket, only has G 1 through 4. A total of, I think, 64 channels total patchable from the stage. And then they have a DM48 down here, which is 48 channels in. That's more than I think they'll ever use in this space, but it's nice because we can use them for, you know, tie lines, headphone monitors. If they end up doing, you know, bigger shows over Christmas in here, we have tons of expandability. Coming down here to the DM48, all of our wireless in-ears are driven in stereo from the soundboard. So we have 16 lines here that go into the back of the stereo in-ears. So again, 8 stereo IEMs all coming from front of house. Then we have all of our Ethernet cables for our redundant GigaAce, redundant Dante, LAN, and then they have the ability to plug in 2 DX expanders. So they actually have one DX16.8 box that they could drop anywhere in the building and use our shielded patch system and get that back here, and then that shows up as inputs. So they could drop it in the lobby, a kid's room, and we can make it back here, or just more inputs on stage. If they wanted something downstage center, 16 inputs, boom, DX16.8. Below that, we have our amplifiers. We have a 5D, that's a 4-channel amplifier that powers our front fills. Then we have 2 30Ds, each 4 channels. One of them powers our mains discreetly, one of them powers our subs discreetly. This system, we have plenty of headroom. It has tons of control. I think this system we have turned down by like 16 or 20 dB for the about 90 average that they want to run. There are times, there's churches that have gone with this system before because they have youth nights or concerts that they want to run at 103, 106. No sweat. But we really like it because it also gives you a lot of control when you go with a box like that. These amps are great. We have AES from front of house coming into them. That's how we get our signal in, and it's just speaker wire out. Talking about some of the things that isn't sexy that people don't talk about a lot is how we got all the cable throughout this building. Some of the cable goes up. We have a cable ladder over here, and that sends cable up and then uses low volt hooks to hit like our DMX in the air, hits our speakers, and then the rest of it goes down, and this whole building is on a crawl space. So then in the crawl space, we have low volt hooks that all this stuff hits, and we can run anything anywhere. During the construction, we specified some cores, some back boxes. Everything in the stage here was all poured with the stage and had conduit run to it. But infrastructure-wise, that's super important. It's really expandable. We can add cables later if they need to, but it's not gonna get ruined or messed with. It's super clean, super troubleshootable. I guess the last thing to talk about back here before we head to the other side, we have some curtain here. And curtain's not super sexy unless you're in theater, but that allows us to, once we close this curtain, this absorbs a lot of the drum bleed. So we have that drum shield on stage. Instead of sending all that sound out, it bounces into our curtain, and our acoustic treatment right here allows us to run no cage, but keep the mix around 90, below 90, depending on your drummer. Then below that, or sorry, above the curtain, we have all the remote antennas, and then this blue backstage work light, which is nice for when these lights are off. We're not totally in the dark, we're not lost, band can still walk back here before and after service. And again, all that was specified and thought of by us based off of conversations with the client. They weren't specifically asking for curtain, they weren't specifically asking for backstage work light, but they gave us the vision of, we want to be able to not run a drum cage, but not run at 100 dB. So we got very specific with the type of materials we specified on stage, where these panels were so that drums could tuck in here really nice. And even backstage work light, you know, that's oftentimes forgotten about, but really, really important all of a sudden on a Sunday, your first Sunday in the building, and it's pitch black backstage. No one likes that. Okay, so over here, this is a MDG ATME, not to be confused with the Blackmagic ATEM. It's in a road case because this was our unit that we'd rented out a lot, and then they purchased it from us. It's a CO2 hazer, has some of the smallest particles of any hazer on the market. We can run it at 5%, 10%, you know, 10 minutes before service, let it run at that 10% all service. It's very authentic in that we don't see, you know, if you look over here, the beams just show up. It's really, really, really smooth, and HVAC has been running in this building all day. So over here on cameras, we have a Blackmagic Ursa Mini Broadcast with the B4 Fujinon lens on it, with zoom, focus control, and then just a monitor for doing, you know, focus assist and stuff like that. This is all OFE. All this stuff is OFE. Camera over there is OFE. It's a Blackmagic Pocket Mini 6K, I believe, with Fujinon glass on it as well. Haven't done any camera upgrades in here yet. We're talking about bringing that into the future, but nothing so far. So over here in this corner, kind of around our front of house area, we have these two boxes, and they are by a company called ETC. This is our architectural control system. So this controls all of our lights when the lighting console isn't on. Over by the main door, there is a 2 buttons that turns on off, and then here we have an 8 button. This allows us to do that same on off, as well as 6 other presets midweek that'll control the entire light rig. All 12 universes, all the front light, all the bars. We can store a preset in that EN12, and then this fires those off midweek if we want. And then if we hit this preset 7, that allows the lighting console to take over. We also have this key over here that allows us to lock and unlock the entry station. So right now I can push off all I want and it doesn't do anything while it's locked. Once I unlock it though, any of the entry stations around the room start to work. The other thing that this controls, besides just lighting looks, is it controls a relay panel. Back in the electrical room, we have an ETC ERP, and that is a 24-channel relay breaker panel. It's a full panel that they installed during construction that these control. So when you hit off, everything dims down nice, and then the relays click off. And all of our lights up in the air, everything, even our 2 of our 3 circuits at the amp rack, all turn off. So we're not using a conventional relay system from Middle Atlantic or Lowell or anything like that, or Furman. We're using the breaker panel, is physically shutting off the outlets in the air. And that is far cheaper in the long run than paying for a breaker panel and the electrician to run all that, and then we slap a $400 relay in the air. It just is all in the panel, and it's the same price as doing a normal panel, but then we can control it. That's something we're really proud of that, you know, again, client didn't ask for, and we don't see a lot of other people doing, but it's that architectural control system. This room runs that way, and then the other 2 performance rooms in the building also run that way, where they have these same entry stations that control house lights, but it also controls all the power for the room as well. That prevents these lights from hanging in the air, cooking all week long. hit off, they fade off nice, and then the power's cut. So that's super nice out here as well. Okay, so coming into our video control room, we just have 1 or 2 operators in here, depending on how we run it. We got another entry station in here, just on off. Then we have our ProPresenter computer itself. This is one of the new M4 Mac Minis, super, super powerful. And then we have a PCIe chassis that we have a deck link in, and that sends all of our video out of the Mac Mini into the system over SDI. This Mac Mini hooks up to this monitor as well as a KVM under the desk, which allows the same computer to be controlled from over there. So midweek we can come in here and work on this, or on Sunday they might have an operator here, but then Wednesday they'll have an operator out there. It allows that dual flexibility. The other thing we have going on in here is we have a big knob, just a Mackie big knob that controls our monitors. Something kind of unique is we have 2 sources. So this on B source can listen to just the audio off the Mac. So if you're in here working on a video, you don't need the soundboard on. And then I hit A, and that now pulls from the feed from the Sanctuary. And that actually pulls from coming off the soundboard. We take audio into our video switcher, and this comes out of the video switcher into here. So if you turn on compression on the video switcher or do anything weird like that, you'll hear it on these monitors in here. Coming over here, we have 2 multi-views. We got our main multi-view. This one I think they have on full screen program. And then we have an advanced panel 1ME that controls our Blackmagic 4ME Constellation HD video switcher in the rack here. So we got our rack lights, which is super nice. Here's that ATEM Constellation 4ME HD. All of our videos, our video sources would get mixed through here. Then we have a HyperDeck for recording, and they actually have on this rack an ATEM Mini Pro, which they use for their live stream. Up here in the top, we have an Ethernet patch bay, much like we saw elsewhere, a switch, and then this SDI patch bay. So these folks didn't have the budget for a full TT patch bay, you know, a normalized TT patch bay, 12G or whatever, you know, you can drop a lot of money on those. These are BNC Keystone connectors that on the other side go to SDI cables that go throughout the building. So over here we can see we have like stage F. So floor pocket F will have an SDI in it that comes here. Then down below, these bottom 3 rows are all of the sources on our ATEM. So we have all 40 of our inputs, and then we have 24 of our outputs and some other auxiliary stuff. So I can patch from SDI F, I can plug in to ATEM in 8. Or I can plug into ATEM aux 12. So that can be an input or an output. Totally patchable here. Same thing goes for our confidence monitor, our lobby displays, all that sort of stuff. It all hits this patch bay here and is all patchable to this ATEM 4ME. Underneath the desk here, it's kind of that same thing like we see elsewhere, where we have a connector panel that we have some of our audio stuff going on, and then a connector panel for our SDIs and our shielded Ethernet. So again, I can plug in here, I can plug a COM pack in here, and that could patch to a COM pack in the back stage, just patching through our system. Something else I want to touch on that's kind of unique and in the weeds. A lot of times you see people using like Dante Virtual Sound Card for getting audio from their computer into the system. We've had some issues with that in the past where all of a sudden it doesn't work. So here we have this radial PCDI that takes USB in and then sends out just to XLR. So it shows up as an audio interface. It runs at 96K, 24-bit. It sounds awesome. That runs out into our patch system that hits the front of house board. Coming out of this though is also a headphone jack. And that allows us to run into this big knob so that they can run audio when the soundboard isn't on. So this is serving a dual purpose for us. But again, hits this patch system and allows us to get it into the system that way. So this computer's in here, but audio's plugging into the soundboard in front of house. So we're out here in the lobby. We got Sanctuary on my right. This is a really, really big lobby. This is gonna be their, their meeting area. They did an event in here last Saturday with like 150 ladies that when they don't want to do something in the Sanctuary, they use this. So that means that we need to have an audio system and video system out here as well. So we have 6 of these 65-inch TVs that can get overflow from the main Sanctuary on a weekend, and then they can plug other content into it midweek. And then above us, we have some Sonance Professional Series 8-inch pendants. And these are all 70-volt pendants. But they sound great and they cover this whole room. And then powering this system, we have a Q-Sys. So we get Dante from the Sanctuary in here, we can get overflow coming out of these speakers. And then we also have 4 wireless microphones just for this room with remote antennas hanging out up here. So a fully featured AV system out, if you will, out here, so that they can do any type of event they want. The other thing that's very unique to this project for us is we also did the full building network as well. So a lot of times you hear of an IT contractor doing all of the building network, and then the AV guys just kind of muddle along, have to do their own thing, and it's all separate. Well, in this case, the AV guys did the building network as well. So that means we have access points all over the place. We have switches everywhere. So from the worship pastor's office, he could get on the Dante network and record over there, or control the lighting console or anything like that. But we started with AV first. So it is using the enterprise grade gear that you'd be used to, but with AV being the first priority, and then the staff network, if you will, kind of piggybacked off of that. And we don't do that for everyone. That was kind of something unique here, where they wanted us to kind of take the whole thing into account. So networking in the main room matches the networking here, matches the network in the kids' room. It's all on one system that we're able to control. And it's super robust, rather than just setting up a little router and a little cheap switch at front of house. Way more flexible, way more robust. And actually with the company we went with Unify, since they're now Dante certified and have presets for all that sort of thing, it's pretty cost effective too, relative to some of the other brands that you'd usually use for Dante. So that's something pretty cool as well, that we did in this space. So here we have our Q-SYS control panel, and we have our 4 microphone in here. We have a media player, which I'll talk about in a second. Then we have our feed from our worship center. Then we have our lobby speakers, volume, and our outdoor speakers. We have some outdoor speakers here too. The 4 microphones, those are some SLXD. We got 2 handhelds, 2 headsets. And then the nice thing about Q-SYS, the way we have this set up is we can have a signal bar here, but instead of having to touch screen a fader, we use these buttons to up and down the fader, and then you can see the level right here. So mute and then volume up or down. Something else that's kind of unique here is we have this media player on the network. So this is a device that allows us to, from my phone, Spotify Connect, Apple AirPlay, music to this little server that then connects into our Q-SYS core. So that shows up as an input here on Q-SYS, but it also goes over the Dante network to the soundboard in the main room. So midweek, a lot of times they just have a playlist looping here that they can turn up, mute the sanctuary, just have some background music going on out here. And then that can also be music pulled up in the sanctuary if they want over the Dante network. Then during service, we can pull our feed from our worship center, which is a pseudo broadcast mix sort of thing that's all time delayed for the lobby, that they can get the message and the worship out here if someone's not able to be in the service. So kind of nice over here, full control of stuff like that, but still super simple so that someone from their welcome team can come operate this touch panel. Sweet, I think that kind of wraps up a lot of what we've done here. If you guys have any questions about the type of gear we're using, why we chose it, what it costs, and if you're curious about, us providing solutions for the problems you guys have, please reach out. We'd be happy to talk about that sort of thing. This whole thing started with them proposing an idea of a new church building, their vision for it, and then us working together on what type of gear makes that happen. So again, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe. But again, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.